Welcome to the podcast summary of M.I.A. This episode is about M.I.A. as more than a run of controversies or a couple of huge songs. Her story pulls together war, exile, internet age fame, political art, and a very stubborn belief that people living through violence should get to speak for themselves. It also gets messy, because the same artist who made some of the sharpest political pop of the 2000s has kept moving in ways that leave admirers, critics, and old fans arguing about what exactly she represents now. M.I.A.'s childhood was shaped by displacement from the beginning. She was born in London, moved as an infant to Jaffna, lived through the Sri Lankan Civil War, and came back to London as a refugee at 11 after her primary school was destroyed in a government raid. That history didn't just become backstory for her. She treated it like an artistic and political mandate. Her argument, again and again, was that if you've actually lived through war, censorship, and state violence, you should keep the right to tell that story yourself, instead of watching governments, media, or cultural gatekeepers sand it down. For supporters, that made her a powerful refugee icon. For critics, especially around her advocacy for Sri Lankan Tamils, it also brought accusations of terrorism sympathies and LTTE support. Musically, she never fit neatly anywhere, which was part of the point. She fused hip-hop, dancehall, grime, electronic music, Tamil film music, South Asian folk sounds, and African and Caribbean rhythms into something that resisted being parked in the polite little box labeled world music. Her album Kala really captures that global sprawl. Visa issues forced her to record across India, Trinidad, Liberia, Jamaica, Australia, Japan, the UK, and the US. So border restrictions didn't just inconvenience the work, they became part of its actual creative conditions, which feels very on brand for her life. And before this kind of rollout became normal, she was already building an audience through MySpace, file sharing, college radio, clubs, and fashion shows, instead of waiting for the mainstream to bless her. She was an early example of an internet-era artist becoming a major presence without coming up through the usual gatekeepers. Another key piece here is that M.I.A. didn't come in thinking of herself only as a singer or rapper. She started as a visual artist and filmmaker, and that never stopped mattering. Her music was tied up with graffiti, fashion, videos, album design, and political imagery from the start. Back in 2001, her exhibition mixed Tamil political street art with London life and consumer culture, and it was nominated for an Alternative Turner Prize. She deliberately styled herself as an anti-pop star, with abrasive sounds, fluorescent clothes, refugee imagery, and stage shows that were not interested in being neat or safely marketable. Some critics saw that as a new kind of global pop authorship. Others dismissed it as radical chic and questioned whether an art school celebrity could authentically represent poverty, war, and displacement. One of the most distinctive things she tried to do was make politically charged music that still worked in a club. She said she wanted to write about important subjects in a way that sounded like nothing, meaning light enough or catchy enough that people would actually dance to it. Paper Planes is the obvious example, turning immigrant stereotypes into a pop hit so sticky that a lot of people sang along before they really clocked what it was saying. Born Free went the other direction, using graphic fictional violence against red-haired youths to force attention toward genocide, militarized repression, immigration, and the way people get numb to real violence. That approach predictably ran straight into censorship fights. Born Free was removed and age-gated by YouTube. Her response was basically, so simulated violence shocks you, but real execution footage circulates online, and somehow that's the world we're fine with. That conflict with institutions kept repeating. After her middle finger gesture at the Super Bowl halftime show, the NFL sued her for millions. She pushed back by arguing that the league's language about wholesomeness was hypocritical, especially given its own scandals and health controversies. She also framed it as a gender double standard, saying women in pop could be rewarded for being sexualized, but punished for one brief act of punk-style defiance. The lawsuit was settled privately in 2014, But the larger pattern stayed the same. She kept turning legal threats, corporate pressure, and public outrage into material for more songs and more arguments. Her politics were never just about war zones or celebrity protests. A lot of it was about information itself. She treated the internet as both liberating and dangerous, a place where you could bypass the old system and also a place built for surveillance and control. She used MySpace, YouTube, SoundCloud, Patreon, NFTs, and her own sites to route around the industry when she could. At the same time, she criticized companies like Google and Facebook as threats to internet freedom, supported WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, and still objected when WikiLeaks partnered with big news outlets she didn't trust. The consistent thread is skepticism about who gets called credible, who gets erased, and why powerful institutions always seem eager to describe themselves as neutral. It's also important to remember that this wasn't only performance or provocation. She put money and visibility into concrete activism, helping fund schools in Liberia, donating a $100,000 performance fee towards school construction, supporting youth programs in war-affected communities, and aiding Tamil war crimes advocacy. She used major performances, fashion, and media attention to keep focus on conflicts that many mainstream audiences barely noticed. And her own philosophy was pretty blunt. She said she could have stayed quiet and probably boosted her fame and bank balance, but chose political speech instead. Then there's the part that makes her legacy much harder to talk about cleanly. Her politics shifted in ways that complicate the earlier image of her as a left-wing Tamil and refugee advocate. She endorsed Jeremy Corbyn in 2017 and 2019, later endorsed Donald Trump in 2024, and supported Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a possible future leader. During the COVID era, she said she'd choose death over vaccination, questioned links between vaccines and 5G, and later launched an anti-5G clothing line through Alex Jones's InfoWars ecosystem. By 2026, she was calling herself a Republican and making comments about immigrants during a Kid Cudi tour stop. She was booed, and Cudi removed her from the tour, which really underlined the break between her newer contrarian politics and the progressive audience many people associated with her earlier work. That doesn't erase the force of the earlier art, but it does mean any honest conversation about M.I.A. has to hold contradiction without pretending it's tidy. M.I.A. remains one of those artists who changed how pop could sound, look, and argue, even if following the full arc of her politics can be genuinely uncomfortable. Her career asks a tough question that still matters. When someone builds their art around resisting power, what do we do when that resistance starts pointing in directions we don't trust? Either way, she was never interested in being easy listening in any sense of the phrase. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.